No, 5 o'clock.
Okay, shall we get started? Can everybody hear? And can we hear everybody?
I
check
can hear
1,
you.
2.
Okay, then we're in good shape. Welcome to spring. Welcome to the meeting on May 8th. First on the agenda, additions, changes to the agenda. Are there any from anybody?
I just want an opportunity to give some updates or feedback from the select board when I report it out to them.
Okay,
Sure, is that would that fit on any of these work groups or?
I mean, I can, I don't know. Communications, maybe?
Sure,
Okay,
let's add it to the communication part. Under. Yeah, communication around upcoming zoning vote, and then below that, we can add what you want to say.
okay.
okay.
Awesome.
Approval of the minutes. We have a motion on approval of the minutes.
I did not read them, so I'm gonna approve them, but.
And I wasn't in attendance.
I'd move to approve them. There were some
Yeah.
changes that were, that I think we got things squared away with. Yep.
Is there a second?
Second,
Without objection, can we have unanimous consent to approve the minutes? And we've done that. Attendance policy. Jared, that's you.
All right, so I'll just keep this brief because we already talked about it. The draft attendance policy got shared with all of the committee members. The broad strokes, basically all committee members are expected to attend meetings either in person or via Zoom. If you are not able to attend, the expectation is that you'll give advance notice, ideally 24 hours or more if possible. Absence from 3 consecutive meetings without prior notice given to the group by way of phone or email communication with at least one of the co-chairs will lead to discussion between the co-chairs and the committee member about whether they're able to continue their duties as assigned as a member of this group. Questions regarding this policy or specifics should be raised to the co-chairs and can be further discussed by the entire group if necessary, and the policy can be revised and adapted as needed by the group through discussion and majority vote. So if there are any suggestions, changes, alterations that folks want to make to that, we can. I don't know, we can also vote on it here or like let folks look it over again and approve it
Okay,
next meeting.
no, discussion on the policy, yeah.
That sounds great to me. It's pretty straightforward. Anybody else?
sounds good to me.
I was gonna ask do we need a motion to approve this policy, or is it just there?
Might as well do it.
Okay.
I think we can adopt it. I would just note, for the record that this does seem like a relatively low bar.
Yep.
Which I'm
Yes.
not objecting to that, but I'm just saying the bar, we're not setting a high bar.
Right.
Just
I
to
mean,
say
missing 3 meetings in a row without notice is pretty outrageous.
Yeah, but, okay.
Let's hope you got a minimum of a broken leg.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Of
What
course.
Do we email the whole group when we're not going to make it, or do we just notify the chairs?
I think it'd be good to notify the whole group, let everybody know. I mean, that's just my opinion. I think we're obligated to notify the chairs, but I think it'd be good to let the whole group know.
Yeah.
Anybody disagree with that? Please, let's hear it.
I would just say that I think that it's just a nice practice to email everybody, but I think if somebody's uncomfortable, at least, notifying a chair would be appropriate. I think that's how I feel. So there are times when maybe there's something going on that you don't want to elaborate on, or I don't know.
Yeah,
So
that's
can we
great to
have a
hear.
motion? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Can we have a motion then to adopt this attendance policy?
I move to adopt this attendance policy as written.
Second,
If there is no objection, we have unanimous consent. If there is any objection, we do not. Is there unanimous consent to adopt the policy? And therefore, we have done it.
okay.
Communication Committee. Lauren or Kim?
Lauren, you want to start talking about the 7 days article?
Lauren, are you on mute? Can we hear you?
Sometimes phone is
on.
tricky.
Okay, I got it. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. There were just a few things. The communications group has met twice, and we have talked about, we're just about to issue an update on our work, which we will post on Front Porch Forum and on Facebook. We have set up a Facebook groups, or I'm not sure exactly what the technical word is, but a specific Facebook posting for the Plainfield Village Expansion Project. And then we also have set up an account specifically with Front Porch Forum. And we did post today about the land tour that we're having on Saturday. And then I think we plan to do an update on our work tomorrow. And we have been contacted by 7 Days. I believe she interviewed Arian, a reporter from 7 Days, Rachel Hellman, interviewed Arian, and I'm not sure. Walker?
Interviewed Walker?
Yesterday.
Yes, okay. And she interviewed me as well. And she's doing a general article on housing initiatives all over the state. And she said it's going to run in late May. And I don't know. I can't think of anything else. I don't know.
She'll be
if-
attending the land tour on Saturday with the photographer is also one thing to note.
Yeah. Some people on the communications committee were wondering if Eric Blaisdell wants to cover our meetings. He hasn't yet, but I haven't contacted him, but they felt like that might be helpful. Vicki mentioned that. So I don't know whether it's a matter of just he's got too much stuff to cover, but I'm sure he's aware of the meetings. I don't know if there's anything else.
We were going to talk about the email address. And so there is now a plainfieldvt.gov email address for this group. It's villageexpansion@plainfieldvt.gov. Right now, a number of us can log into that account. We don't know how many things we would be sending either from or receiving to that account. So I have it forwarding to my email address so I can get a sense of how labor intensive it is to then forward it along to the appropriate parties or otherwise manage that. But it's a nice way to have a way for the public to contact us without contacting an individual, and also to send communication from us, a subgroup of us, and not any one individual. It doesn't say anybody's name when it hits your inbox, and also really represents that we're an official group of the town.
I think that's it.
Yeah, Karen?
Karen Hatcher, this is actually a question for Arian. Did Anna Phillips from the Washington Post reach you regarding an interview? No, okay.
Not yet. No, that's news to me. Yeah.
He has your number. Just because we were at the information session on the infrastructure grants, and she was here doing a story here in the area about what's been going on with flood recovery. And she, following the meeting, you had already gone, Arian, and she asked who she could speak, who was here from the group about the village expansion, and you were here, but then you weren't here. So I gave her your number. I saw her in the parking lot. So, and I should have probably just given her Lauren or Kim, but now I know to do that.
Well, yeah, we'll make the connection happen. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Updating the FAQs, are we up to that, or am I jumping ahead on your report?
No, you're not jumping ahead. We are going to update the FAQs that were on the old website. We just reviewed all of them and there's a lot of them that are out of date. So we will be doing that soon.
Okay, and you also have communication around zoning vote, minimal impact on village expansion.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess
Agenda
maybe
note.
there have been a lot of questions about that, although I haven't seen a lot of communication from the Planning and Development Committee or whatever they're called, but I think that we determined that the zoning changes wouldn't have a significant impact on the village expansion project because the area that is going to be developed is already under village residential zoning district, and there are some, if people wanted to do smaller lots, or if we want to do smaller lots, I think we have to apply for conditional use permits or something like that. I think Arian knows more about that, but anyway, it doesn't have a significant impact on this project as far as I understand it.
Yeah, just to unpack that a little bit more, there early on, it was thinking that the village expansion would be zoned as sort of a conventional subdivision, and that the minimum lot size as stipulated in the zoning bylaws would come into play, and therefore the reduction in minimum lot size that's currently proposed in the updated zoning would have a significant impact. However, because it's very likely that a planned unit development rather than a subdivision will be the zoning approach, where you take the entire area of land and you average the density, and it's specifically targeted towards conserving land, which lends itself to this particular parcel because we do have so many wetlands. That process is a totally separate process authorized by the state. Plainfield is required to have these rules. This is not something that Plainfield on its own made up. And because the project would most likely follow that path, the minimum lot size provision in the zoning update has no impact on it. And there's been some discussion that the zoning update would be required in order for the smaller lots in the proposed village expansion. And that's just not true because of this planned unit development approach. So I hope that makes sense. It's a little kind of in the weeds there, but that's the gist of it.
I appreciated that, Ben, and appreciate your help earlier, Arian, on my own communication with folks around this issue. Any more discussion on this? If on communication committee, we've covered everything that's in the agenda?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just need
Liz?
to add my little
Please.
bit from, so at the last select board meeting, it was my turn to report out, so, it was requested that we send minutes directly to the select board as soon as they're approved. I don't know if we can just, as soon as they're approved, craft an email and get it off the same night. I think that they would appreciate that. And then the other note was that the CDBG grant would require each project in Plainfield has to create their own proposal for consideration. So if we want a piece of that, we'll have to create our own proposal.
I'll
Mhm.
clarify that.
Yeah,
Say that again.
I will clarify that.
Okay,
in my
please.
report. So,
and
You,
that's,
at some future time or now?
Tonight, I can't hear.
and yeah, and that's all the select board wanted me to share with the wider group, and my job here is done.
But you can't go.
No, I'll sit here for a minute.
Do you want to say anything at this point?
Fine.
Okay.
This section, right? On the
Yeah.
That may be the perfect segue, actually, because the next section is budget and finance, which Karen, we could jump right into you talking about that. So that may be quite perfect.
Can people hear me from here? From this seat, you guys? Great, okay, good. Karen Hasher, Town Grants Administrator, here to give you an update on CDBG DR, which is Disaster Recovery, and CDBG is Community Development Block Grant. Okay. So as we spoke about last time I was here, we didn't know, we hadn't seen the draft plan yet, and we didn't know if Plainfield would be eligible to apply for the funds, and these were the $68 million that was coming to Vermont, where the bulk of those funds were going to be available to Washington and the Moyle counties. And as you may remember, these are non-matched funds. So it's not like they come and then you have to find the other part of it. No, these are, but we did see the draft plan. It came out on April 21st. And it is now in what they call the 30-day public comment period. What the plan tells us is that, yes, in fact, Plainfield is eligible because we did suffer damage in 2023. In fact, we had 10 houses that were offered buyout. Only 3 of them went into the buyout program, but we did have significant enough damage to our housing stock in 2023 that would render us eligible to apply for these funds. So that's piece of good news number 1. Piece of good news number 2, especially for this project, is that the focus of the funds are on affordable housing and the infrastructure that supports affordable housing. So we've been getting a lot of clarity around what we can apply for and what we cannot apply for. And to Liz's point, what we were talking about was that we have, people may think, oh, we can just apply for a pot of money, like there's a $10 million maximum application. You can't just say, we want $10 million and we'll tell you what we're going to do with it after we get it. We have to be very specific within the application, what project we're applying under and what all of the details of that are. So as we look at the details of the draft plan and we discuss them with the representatives from the state who are helping us, it's pretty clear to us that this project is the right project for the funds to apply for them. There are some interesting parts to this. So I met with the subcommittee yesterday, day before, I don't know what day it was, to talk about this, and our team also met with Kat Moulton from the State Recovery Office and Eli Tui and Keith Cubbin from Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. And this is the team of people that are going to come together to work week by week to put this application together. What we think we can do with this money is fully fund this project. And then as the lots are sold, be able to channel that money back into something called the revolving loan fund that would allow people who are building homes, who are low and moderate income, who are in this very specific category of people that fall under this CDBG-DR, to be able to borrow money from the loan fund to help to build their homes. So it's this beautiful, elegant way to fully fund the infrastructure and be able to charge for the lots, but then use that money to help people to build. So that's kind of the direction we seem to be heading into. And also it would allow us to build into the application a recovery project manager. So a professional person who over the course of 5 years could help with not only this project, but general recovery projects ultimately. But so this is kind of where the thinking is right at the moment. So we are right now, just today, decided that our regular Tuesday 10 o'clock grants group meeting will morph into a CDBG-DR planning meeting, and that we will ask some members of the finance subcommittee who can join us. It's a 10 o'clock Tuesday meeting, but members of that group to interface as much as possible with our grants group to put together a very compelling application for the CDBG money. It's going to be very competitive. I don't know that we'll get all of it, but I think we've talked about having a plan A and a plan B, right? You ask for everything and then they'll cut what they do. But I think if we have a really compelling story to tell, and I think this project does that, we could this could be a real win for everyone in this community. So, really excited, actually really excited about this. This is very good news. What we will not do with this money, just, because we cannot tie it to anything for 2024, because it's connected to the disaster declaration for 2023. We can't use it to match FEMA money or match federal highway money. We're not allowed. So we will have to find some other funding for that. And we think, Pat Moulton thinks that she has a lead on some other money that we'll be able to do that with. So that just really kind of, in my mind, simplifies this application process and thinking, but I think as much detail as this group can bring to that application, the stronger that application will be.
Was there a definition of what they consider affordable housing in Washington County? And
Yeah, it all fits in the LMI. It's very specific, but the Plainfield is 100% in it. It's like, we qualify.
right, we qualify as a district because we have a lower median income, et cetera, right?
We qualify as a town, and we
Yeah.
also would qualify as the county.
But is there a target that they're wanting, like the lot sales and building costs to sort of the overall project to hit? Like, is there a goal that needs to be defined?
I think we're gonna work through all of that
Yeah.
when we start to look at the scoring for the grant,
Mhm,
because there's a lot of specific points you get for different parts of this
right.
and hitting certain targets. So as we start to really, we don't have the final grant plan yet. That will happen on the 21st is the end of the public comment period.
Mhm.
And then we won't probably see the final grant document until the end of June.
Mhm.
And then probably July, August will be the application period opening.
Yeah.
We'll have more information as we go. We don't
Yeah.
know all of this yet.
When in this draft comment period one, is there some scoring metrics that were published?
The
Or is it
draft
just-
plan is published.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have the draft action plan here.
And we can point you to it on the web.
Yeah.
There's-
Yeah.
You can get the
I
link.
haven't had a time to look through
Yeah.
everything, but.
So the percent, kind of like of the project that has to be, like qualifying for the low, mid, median income.
It's
Low to
low to mid,
Low to mid.
it's low to, it's
LMI.
LMI, let's just say that.
Low to median, yeah.
Where did that number, there's a word that I'm not getting tonight, so go ahead.
So for the money overall, a certain percentage of that money has to go to like this type of project.
Right.
And then, then there's set asides for mitigation. There's some other set asides for infrastructure. And, so there's like kind of there's a matrix of like what it is and then what percent of that and percent of that
Mhm.
has to come down.
So
So,
the town qualifies just by being the Plainfield, but
yeah,
there's a project definition that also needs to meet a certain qualification, like we're putting in downstream is putting in 5 units. That's
I think the whole, all of the elements of this project are gonna be
They're all
really
weighted.
interesting. And the more creative we get, and, when you look at the document and you target, we have a really great opportunity to look at the document and say, how can we make sure we get the most points around each one of these?
Mhm.
And so like half of the points are given, from the HUD at the federal level.
Mhm.
And then the other half are given at the state. So, it's really clear what they're looking at. So as we're putting this together and as we're thinking about all the elements of the project, how can we build in and make sure that we have a really strong application?
Yeah.
I'm trying to make sure that the project that we're proposing as best as it can align with that it aligns with that and still maintains our goals. as a group.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One question that I had, just because I feel like this question is definitely going to come up because there are so many projects throughout Plainfield that, you know, need funding and need attention. Are there any other projects that you and the grants team see this money being appropriate for, or that you would try to include in a proposal?
No, because I think what this grant's looking for is shovel ready. It's really one of the ways you get points is how close are you to being ready to actually make something happen? And I don't think that there's any other project that's come before us. We can't do the infrastructure work from 2024 with this money. That's not allowed.
But we don't know what Lamoille County's doing, if they're included in the larger pot of money, is
Well,
that wrong?
We don't know what anybody else is
Yeah.
doing. Like, we know there'll be a Berry application, there'll be a Montpelier application,
Right.
right? We don't know what other projects are coming. We just know that ours is very much about affordable housing. And it's the infrastructure supporting that, and that's clear in there. So that's like where we're going, and I guess we have to just be as strong as we can be, and also
Okay.
trust that, you know, there's a lot of attention on us right now. People want this project to, this is being seen as a model of what communities can do to recover. So I think there's a lot of, you know, energy around wanting us to make this happen. So the best we can do is the best we can do, but there are no other, like, folks will probably ask, well, what about Goddard? You know, there's been no project brought forward to the town to say we want to include it. We're not there, but this right now and the timing of this is right there.
So I have a question. I'm just hearing for the first time about shovel ready.
Yeah.
Is there a duration that is associated with shovel ready that
I'm sure there's something in there that tells us
Okay.
what that means, but I think what it's looking for is how much work have we done up to the
Previous.
point that we're,
okay?
so I think all of the work that the steering committee has done, setting this up to this point, I think cannot be, you can't understate how important that has been, you know, to get right to this point where we have as much of the work done as we have.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's still things to be decided, but it's pretty far along in its concept and its work.
I had heard that possibly this grant was so complicated that we might need a grants consultant
Yeah.
outside. Is that still,
heard that
is
too.
that still true?
You know, that is a question, but we met with Pat Moulton. Pat has committed to us that she will be part of our team.
Okay,
The two folks from CBRPC have committed to be part of our team. We believe that their experience is
Yeah.
what we need. And if we don't need to spend money on a consultant to help us write a grant that they
Yeah.
would have to get up to speed on. I mean, Pat's been with us right from the jump on all of this,
Okay.
and so I feel confident, I really feel confident that this team that we've put together will be, with the help of your group, will get us everything we need in this application. I think there is definitely a desire at the state that we have professional management
Mhm.
of when we get the money. Like, we can't, this is gonna be a big project, and
I agree.
so.
Meaning
writing-
somebody like a clerk of the works type
Well,
of thing.
like, more like a project manager.
Okay,
Who can make sure all of the things that are supposed to happen in the order that they're supposed to
I see.
happen. With the money, with the paperwork, with the contractors, with all of the contracting.
Not me.
So, I think, so building that into the grant application will be really important. And demonstrating to the state that we heard them and we plan to have professional help, as we go. One of the other things that got mentioned, just to say, you know, with this revolving loan fund, is that management of those funds would need to be done externally, right? By a professional group, right? And so that's another thing we'll need to explore if we go that direction.
I just comment that I think that the idea of taking the extra money that's not used for construction, putting it into a revolving loan fund for people to build makes it super sweet.
I think so.
Because I really think that, I think that that's really That's the cherry on top.
That's Pat Moulton's idea,
And-
and I was like,
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, like a construction loan, after buying a lot, a construction loan makes all houses above the affordable housing range.
Because I assume they're gonna be below market, these loans from the revolving loan fund.
well, we're gonna, I think it's up to us to,
The conversation with the bank. Right now, the revolving loan
That's
fund is with.
Really exciting.
NSB, and I spoke with them about, getting, obtaining more services, since they currently manage the revolving loan fund.
Mhm.
So, and then in terms of like the financials on it, I have, a meeting with Nemrick, which is our accounting software,
Uh-huh.
vendor to, basically to set up the chart of accounts for all of this, these works. For what's gonna come in specific to the project, so that. Getting a project manager, I can hand that off to them and say, you go, have fun.
So but the percentage that's paid back is set by the town, the revolving loan fund committee.
Right, and there's,
I see.
there's also some like. With the bank, like how much are we holding and what fees are involved, but
Yeah,
for them to manage those,
but there's also, the bank is one option, but Vermont Economic Development is another. So there are a number of organizations that can do this kind of holding of the money and granting the money and doing all of that. Loaning the money, I mean, not granting, but so those are some things we're gonna explore as well to see
Yeah.
where can we get the best deal.
Yeah.
To make.
And I know the
this work.
CHIP Act, it's just passed the Senate, also has a revolving loan fund part of it. but
Yeah.
That's, I haven't read into it, but.
Is it too early for a duration for when people do borrow, what the duration?
Yeah,
will be
don't
to
know.
pay back?
It's too early.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say too early.
So the other bullet on this
That's
agenda
the-
item is how it relates to the bond vote timing in relation to the community development block grant. That's at least what's on
Yeah,
my
I know.
bullet
and
on the
when I
agenda.
see that, I think there is no bonding that we're talking about. There's no bond to go before the town on this, if we get the money. So if we apply and we get most, then there's no need for the town to borrow.
So it's
or
not
bond.
unreasonable to think that the town's commitment to this, which was originally 2.5 million, might be 1 million. Depending on
It-
the size of
it
the
could be
block grant.
nothing. It could be nothing.
Am I figuring wrong, or? It could be less than that.
Yes. If we get the full amount, so if
Mhm.
we, let's say, with all the bells and whistles and everything you want, I'm gonna say $8 million, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what your bells and whistles, but let's say,
yeah.
for some reason, they say,
Hmm.
yes. We come in at 8, and this is everything we want, and they say, yes, everything's funded.
Yeah, then we bury the electrics.
Then we do all the
Well,
things, we make it all the way we want it, but then, then as the lots sell,
That's what populates
That-
the reload.
That's
yeah,
right.
you have to use those dollars for the project.
Yeah,
So that's where it goes.
That's perfect.
great.
And that's, and the bells and whistles that Karen is looking at me for is some of the things that we've talked about not being in the project right now that are really a lot better for the community, like burying the electric, like paving the roads.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these bells and whistles are really, in my way of thinking, designed to make this much more durable and affordable for the community as we go forward, not just in the initial cost.
Yeah, and I don't mean bells and whistles like it's superfluous, but all the things that you wish all your wish list,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's what I mean.
And that is also, the paving is also the preference of the highway.
I'm sure.
Oh.
I can't imagine grading a little community, that could be a pain in the-
Well, that's
It'd be
really
like
great
Hudson
stuff.
Ave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good
it's
news, good news.
fantastic.
We have a lot of work in front of us, but that's what we'll do.
We ready to move on?
If I could just add a couple of points to that is, from from the Budget and Finance Committee standpoint, we want to continue to model, to have a couple different scenarios to consider. Obviously, this opportunity is a phenomenal one that would be, I'm sure, everybody's first choice. But we are definitely, it will be a competitive process. We are not guaranteed the funds. I think we have some good winds at our back. And as Karen said, we're well teed up with the work that's been done to date. But also we probably do need to make sure that we don't, that we are also planning contingencies. So just to sort of state that explicitly, feels important.
So one more time for me, please. So you said sometime perhaps in July, the application would go in.
Would open.
Okay,
So
so,
then there's
okay,
usually a window, right?
Okay.
But it's expected we'd be working on it up till then.
right.
And then there's a window when we would apply.
Okay.
And then by the end of the year is when we believe that the funds will be granted.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
That's
what I
what we're
need to
looking
know.
at. Right.
One additional thing to say from the Budget and Finance Committee is that, I think it's going to be important to keep moving forward in mind for this grant and with other, both for this grant, with some of the engineering and with some of the permitting so that we can continue to finalize some of these designs. And I think that is going to continue to need, we're going to probably need to go to ask the select board to move forward with borrowing the money from the Vermont Community Foundation while also specifying exactly what the mechanism would be for repayment should the project move forward. And so in light of this grant, there are I think going to need to be some fine tuning of how that original loan from the Vermont Community Foundation is framed, but I think it's going to be more in the details side and not any kind of wholesale change. But I do think in order for us to keep moving forward so that we are ready to execute, if the project is funded or if we come up with partial funding from this grant and perhaps need to still do a bond vote, that at least we're ready to move forward with actual final engineering and final design, which I think will take all of our subcommittees working further to get it to that point. And we will need some money to continue the engineering. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I guess my question to you and the rest of the people who've been on this steering committee is there anything left on the engineering front that's a sort of a no-go? Oh, we can't actually do anything here issue, or have we passed all the hurdles? And now the engineering is really sort of less fundamental and more refinement.
I think.
Rick, Arian, do you want that one? Or
No, why don't you go ahead, Rick?
I think that if I understand what you're asking, the question is, are we ready to just sort of launch into another phase of the engineering? And I think that we're still a little bit jostling around with some of these cost issues. We talked about potentially needing to waste some materials on site, but how we go about doing that, our group really hasn't met to talk about that yet. I think we've been waiting for a little bit more direction. And of course, this revelation here is a game changer for whatever we might be wanting to do. But I think what I'm hearing Arian say makes a lot of sense, which is that we still have to look at another option where we might indeed need to look at this as a locally funded project. And keep that going. So I feel like we're not really ready to launch an engineering process that very clearly articulates what both of those two options would be.
I guess my question is more like, have we answered the question of drainage off of that one steep side? Have we answered the question of septic we have? Have we answered the question of like some sort of fundamental land features? Do we know that we can put all of the lots in there that we want to, is the question that I have. And if we can't, or if there's some sort of fundamental thing that we're missing, does asking for 150 grand loan, where does that, does that answer the question? Do we still have those questions?
I'll go ahead, Arian. I would like a little help here because
Yeah.
my mind's going in a couple different directions.
Yeah, well, I think the there are some questions that we need to go back to the Agency of Natural Resources and talk with them about the wetlands and can we use some dirt to fill in some areas and what we can do as a trade-off in terms of making some areas of the wetland better in that way actually increasing the overall ecosystem function of the wetlands that are there, because both A&R and the wetland delineator that we've been working with say, as old hayfields, these are kind of marginal wetlands. Yes, they qualify, but their ecological value is not that high. So this was a conversation that was looked at somewhat earlier, and I think we're going to need to revisit. And we have somebody in town, some folks might know him, Nico Rubin, who runs East Hill Tree Farm, who did do some initial designs on how we can plantings and other aspects of wetland improvement. And I apologize, I'm not an expert in this, so I may use the wrong term, but essentially, the state will allow you to use some wetlands in some area if you're improving them in another area. And even if those two areas are basically side by side. So I think there's going to need to be a little bit more of a conversation around the final wetland delineation and what the exact buildable area is. And then I think, if we end up having to, because the grant is not a given, we also may want to look at as a group, is there less open space and more housing because that realizes more revenue for the sake of making this project pencil out better. So I think that's a real question that still hangs out there in the air. And if we have to sort of plan for a couple different contingencies or a few directions that this could go, that does seem like a real question to have an answer to. Does that sound right, Rick?
It does, and I'm just wanting to circle back and say, do we get your,
Yeah,
between
I
us,
think,
get your
I
question
think my
answered?
answer is that we're in a point where we know we can build there. We know that the fundamentals are right. The buildable land is buildable. As
Yes.
long as we define the
Yeah,
maps.
yeah.
And that we're ready to do that with that sort of pre-step 2 refinement and investigation.
I think that's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. A pre-step 2 of engineering is a great way to put it, because we're gonna still maybe push the envelope, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go along, but what is available to us on that site, I think we want to take another look at.
All right.
Yeah, and that
Okay.
we will need some, even if we don't go full blown into the next phase of engineering, we need to be keyed up to do that. And we probably need a little bit of additional money to flesh out some of those details before we sort of go hit print on the final design.
And we need a community input on it too. We need
100%, 100%. But we also need to have to develop some drawings for people to react to, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, I think we're gonna
That's
move
it.
along.
Yep.
Okay. Rick, you're up next with construction and permitting, curb cuts and wetlands.
Oh, yeah, okay, so met with,
Thanks,
Mike-
Karen.
Thank you, Karen. With, the road foreman. Am I
Hold on,
saying
we gotta
this
make
term
sure-
correctly, Josh?
1,
Um,
2, 3, 4.
Michael, and, he expressed concerns about where the curb cut would be on, Maple Hill. And, was saying that really, if there's a driveway, and mostly what we're dealing with is not new roads, but driveways, he really feels uncomfortable with it being right directly across from another person's house. And we've heard that discussion before, we've struggled with that, and I didn't get into a whole lot of detail other than to register that really makes a lot of sense to me too. I think as we move along with some of the discussions, we may have a couple of strategies to work with that to make it not as bad. One of them is that Arian has done some looking at wetlands, and I'm going to dive right into that one next, if it's okay.
Please.
And apparently, given some recent Supreme Court legislation, that Arian and Brad Wheeler, who is our wetlands consultant, have been looking at, we may be able to have this not qualify as a federal wetland. And so that is in process right now with the Army Corps of Engineer. And that changes potentially a lot of things. I think it does mean that, and how it changes it, I'm not entirely clear yet. But what it does mean is if we do get that jurisdictional change, we only have to deal with them being state wetlands, not federal wetlands. I think that's a good thing, from what I understand, because we may have some more latitude to do some of what Erin was already talking about through the process of working with Nick or Ruben to take away some areas that are maybe marginal wetlands and potentially waste fill onto it, save money, be less disruptive to the project. We may be able to reorient the access onto East Hill so that it's more functional. So I think that there's some negotiations that may be forthcoming to make the project better. And this is kind of what I was alluding to before, Walker, is that I think that may improve a bit. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Other discussion on this?
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah, of
When
course.
when it comes to the East Hill access, it seems to me that we had to plan to come into East Hill, but there was a large fine associated with that, or a cost. Are we saying that it could reduce the cost of the? It seems like this could mean a lot of different things, but could it reduce the cost of the road?
My sense is yes. Arian, you're going to probably want to hit this one more than me.
Yeah, I can speak to that. One of the advantages of this is that the state regulations and the people that we're dealing with, you know, I don't want to imply that they are less strict because they're pretty strict, the state, but their options, it seemed like they were more flexible in terms of they were open, the state, I would say early on in the conversations that Sandy Vitzthum and I had with them, they were open to this idea of restoration, where we actually are improving a net win of ecosystem services by restoring wetlands there while also utilizing some of the more marginal aspects and acknowledging that for safety reasons, we need a road back to East Hill. Like for fire code and trucks, it's like it has to be. And so the state has always been open to this idea of restoration and as compensation rather than a financial compensation. The feds were never open to that idea because of their own internal rules. And it's very expensive. I mean, we were talking like almost 6 figures of compensation just for the road. And so this was very expensive. And so if it's deemed not jurisdictional, which we're optimistic of, and the original source of that information actually came from Senator Peter Welch's office, who advised us on this to review this recent guidance that's been issued. If that's the case, there is not only do I think that we have the potential to have a better long-term project with wetlands that are in Plainfield, functioning for Plainfield, rather than when you give the Army Corps money, they give it to Ducks Unlimited and they go build a wetland out west somewhere that doesn't help anybody around here. But doing it here while also saving significant money for the project. So fingers crossed that that's possible.
We're just having oceans of good news today.
No, take it.
Take it while we can.
Are we ready to move on, folks?
Yeah.
Well, it's you, Walker, prospective buyers.
I have not had the time to do prospective buyers.
Okay, well, then it's gonna
I
be a
actually
quick
asked him
discussion.
to take that committee over. I really cannot lead that committee. I have 2 kids.
I do know that I have reached out tentatively to Eli Barlow, who has expressed some interest in being involved in this committee. Many folks may recall that Eli was interested in being on our committee here, and Eli was involved in the steering committee, the ad hoc steering committee from the beginning. So I think there's some possibility to try to get Eli and perhaps some others from the prospective buyer group, to try to help organize that group. So that's not a done deal either, but trying to figure out the best way to keep that torch moving forward.
That being said, I did do some initial work on a very complex modeling of per lot costs. And I also added the sort of general affordability numbers into that calculation for what is considered affordable housing, which is 30% of your income per month, essentially, should go to housing, and that includes the mortgage, taxes, and utilities. So water and sewer and gas and electric should be 30% of your income. And so I took the median income. This is part of the agenda here. I took the median income, which is for Washington County, which is 79,000 for a household of 2.32 people, something like that. And I took that and I fed it into the per lot cost projections, and then did like a reverse mortgage calculation where basically I said, you need to only pay $1,557 per month on your house, on utilities, taxes, mortgage. That's equal to 30% of a median household income. So from that, I could look at the lot costs projected from our whole plan, the cost estimator plan, and any grant funding or bonding that we're doing, and look at what's remaining after buying the land, what you can have for a loan, and then what kind of a house you can build for the cost of a house per square foot in Washington County, which is high, and the cost of a construction loan, which is high. I set the cost of building at 350 a square foot and the cost of a construction loan at 7.5%. Those can go up and down. And it works out to be a ridiculously low square footage per family if you want an affordable housing on subsidized lot costs, saying we get 2.5 million from grant funding and cover the rest. You're looking at around 600 to 700 square feet in building that you can do and have it be an affordable house. And that is like back of the math, that's really just sort of scratching through the paper. It's not an accurate number. If you bring that loan interest rate down to 3.5%, which is where we were in 2020, 2021, you can build a 1,700 square foot house. And so that's where we are.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You say the average the average price per square foot. Most people who are building in Vermont have to put in a septic system. They have to put in a road. They have to put in all the, that doesn't include that.
Yeah, it doesn't include septic or well.
Or a road, or, I mean, I try to build a house.
It includes a driveway and a basement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but that's where, if we do with this grant, then with the revolving loan fund.
It could potentially pay for a
lower-
portion. Yeah, it could lower the cost of a portion of that building.
Well, yeah, we'll lower the costs overall that we need to get back, one, but two, like say it didn't at all, but even just having that mechanism of the revolving loan fund at a lower percentage interest rate,
Yeah,
it will make worlds
More affordable.
yeah,
way, like,
Well, I
that's
mean-
a decent sized house, 1,700 square feet.
exactly. Doing that calculation, that was only 3 years ago, 4 years ago that we could do it. But the calculation was an eye opener for me because it kind of said we could drop the lot costs to zero and give everybody this land for free, and they would still not be able to build a house on their own with their own construction loan from a normal bank, even a credit union, and have it be considered affordable housing.
Yeah.
That's the state that we're in this year. And that doesn't include any inflation coming in from Canada. So that's our headwinds as far as what the sort of agreed upon affordability is. Now, that doesn't include Down Street building a 4-unit, subsidized housing. with
I
the way
could,
they
I
do.
have something to add to the conversation here, and I will lead by saying, I either have to totally retract my offer to be a part of this group formally, or just do the tiny little bit that I was interested in, which involves some research. And to that point, I had an exchange with Pat Moulton about the affordability of lots, and it basically just confirms everything that Walker is saying, that, not only is it a really, really hard bar to meet, truly by the letter affordable housing when you are building your own house on a lot. More than that, when it comes to us applying for certain funding, when we are guaranteeing X percentage, which I think, and somebody can confirm this, 20%, something like that, of units, or 20% affordability throughout the development, that even if an individual could build their own house and make it affordable by building a lot, that's a whole long projected paper trail that isn't really good for saying we are going to include affordable housing. However, with the current commitments from Down Street and Habitat, who only work with providing by the book affordable housing, it seems like a way forward is to, when it comes to meeting a standard for a grant requirement or any other concerned party, that we count on Down Street and Habitat to meet that bar. But then within our group, we have additional legwork to do to wrestle with what Walker is bringing up, of in terms of affordable lots. Maybe we determine what we think is affordable, reasonable, moderately priced lots, and make it meet the benchmark in terms of practically what we think that means. But when it comes to down to the letter and by the book, lean on these outside nonprofits to help us meet those standards or those requirements.
Absolutely.
And I think that
Yeah.
also, I mean, the calculation that I put down applied to all of the lots. I wanted to see the average, what it would cost. But yes, it didn't factor in what Down Street is wanting to put in and the other one. And it also didn't, if we're wanting a certain portion of it is going to need to be affordable. And so if there's a certain number of applicants who are, applying and needing affordable housing options, but want their own house, there's not like a Down Street doing it, then there needs to be some kind of mechanism. If there is a revolving loan fund or some other, flywheel involved that the town or some other agency is running, there needs to be a mechanism for targeting those people and getting to the certain percentage required by the grant. Right, if Down Street doesn't cover that percentage. So I think it's doable. It's just, it does kind of hinge on grant funding, and it hinges on some other sort of cost sharing.
So I have a question about the affordability piece, and having Down Street and Habitat for Humanity on this project. My understanding from ages ago, and I may have misheard, was that that those units qualified the project for some sort of funding.
Yeah.
Was it this grant that we knew was coming down the pipe, or?
Yeah, I think on paper, even just the town being the town that we are qualifies for us, not even them being involved.
Right.
And that we found out later. But I think that there is some stipulation, and I haven't looked at
The
this.
percentage of housing has to be, yeah,
Yeah, that has to be in the plan.
but that hasn't been articulated.
That just got
Yeah.
published, so we're
Yeah.
looking through it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that
Arian,
was
you
just-
you have a hand up?
Yeah, I had a, excuse me, the relationships with Downstream and Habitat for Humanity didn't necessarily have this grant in mind because they were, the communication with them started sort of early on as honestly, to just say like, do we have some guaranteed customers if we do this? That was kind of the initial impetus to say like, especially when this was being looked at as a majority revenue, revenue-based project of like, how do we show that the lot sales, we're gonna have some lot sales out of the gate. It does seem in lights of this the disaster recovery grant, that they those will be well positioned. But I gotta double check, and Karen may know this, and I can get back to it. But there is something in the grant criteria where I think it's quite a few of the lots, and I want to say over 50% need to be deemed affordable. So I don't, don't quote me on that, but I remember it's not like 20%, it's a higher number. So in order to fit in this this sort of dream funding program, we're going to have some work there to show how that all fits. I did post in the chat the Vermont Housing Finance Authority's chart on affordability, at least according to their numbers, and it does have 1, 2, 3, 4 bedroom prices in the far column, and the magical line is going to be 80% of LMI, or 80% of area median income or less. That's the special line. So if you look at that table, just for example, and you see that, oh shoot, sorry, I closed it and get back there. If you
When
look
you say
at,
80%, what do you mean?
so if you
80% of
80% of area it must be so when they have to set a standard of affordability, and the standard that they set in the grant criteria is 80% of area median income. So in this table, you can see that they have Vermont broken out into 3 distinct areas. There's Addison County and Chittenden, Franklin, Grand Isle, basically the Burlington area, and then there's all other Vermont, of which Washington County is part. And
That's great. I'll incorporate that. I
yeah,
see
and you take that 80% line, which is the 4th line down from the top, and you go all the way over to the right-hand side. And if you look at like a 3-bedroom home, the max affordable purchase price is $282,000. This gets updated annually, but this was just done in April 2025. So this is very current info. This is the standard by which we will be evaluated for that grant.
393,000 for 100% AMI. Yeah, that's good. That's a little bit more feasible as far as what
I mean,
What my
I think your data is is excellent, Walker, because it also shows us more how the variables are moving around, and especially that interest rate number I found super fascinating in terms of like, wow, it's a lot more affordable if we can sort of secure some lower interest rates. But I think the magic towards probably scoring well on this grant is going to have a lot to do with how we hit these criteria.
Right.
But this
So
is, yeah, this is great.
I didn't hear. Did you say something?
I was just
Okay.
thinking out loud. This
Okay.
is great. This chart.
But if we can, Arian, if we can beat these numbers, then does that make our grant more likely?
Yes.
yeah,
I mean, I think the the affordability, as we also know, is important to the residents of Plainfield. We're not just doing this for the grant, but this at least, getting back to a question we'd had previously about what the definition of affordability is, well, within the context of this grant, is very clearly defined for us. So,
Wow.
which is nice. It's good to have clear goals.
Well, and I also think that it's a good measure for our Plan B
Yes.
when looking at affordability.
Can you pop that link in again? I just logged in. I need to get it on my own computer.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'll incorporate this. That's an easier calculation. And this is the actual numbers, right?
This is like the official state numbers. That's who calculate, Vermont Housing Finance Authority calculates it, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, we ready to move on? We're almost done. I think the next thing on the agenda is to invite people to the tour. I think I had that on Saturday.
Yep.
10 o'clock.
And I will try to point and wave at things to describe where things are on the tour. So I guess that's kind of like being a leader.
Rick, how long do you think the tour would take?
I
From the
would say probably an hour.
An hour.
Yeah,
Okay.
after that, we'll probably let people escape if they
Yeah.
want to, and but I suspect some will have more questions.
I'd love to be there. I have too many things scheduled at 10 AM. I'll have to pick one.
We can always do tours again in the future too, but I, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
but this will be a good opportunity, and I'm sorry that I won't be able to, Kim and I won't be able to join.
Is there anything else before I ask if the public's got any comment? It's not on the agenda, but if there's anything else anybody has to say. Okay, in that case, is there any comments from the public? We have space for that if there is. Well, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, I think.
Move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all those, we have no objection. We have unanimous consent. We'll
Okay.
see everybody here in 2 weeks. And
Let's see, what's the date?
I think that we've set every 2 weeks.
Yes.
So,
Thursday, the 22nd.
Actually, oh, wait, is it?
Yes.
22nd?
22nd.
I'm actually out of town. I don't know if I might try to join.
Understood.
virtually, But,
just don't miss 3 in a row, Liz.
well, I'm gonna make you come talk to me.
Yeah.
But I think
Good.
I might not.